All right, there we go. And we are live. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Morning. Oh, I can't talk already. Oh, it's going to be one of those shows. All right. So now, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Time to Shine Happiness Show, sponsored by the Diamond Factor Experience. We are so excited. Unfortunately, Barb Beckley, oh, we talked about it before the show. We love technology when it works. And we love technology when it doesn't work. So Barb is having a bit of technology issues and going to have to maybe redo her whole account, which we didn't want to do right before the show. So she's going to be doing that after the show. But we are so excited to have Emma Lou Penrod with us today. One of the things that I posted was, are you a parent or do you know a parent? Well, or you know what? We had parents, and sometimes it's a minefield. And I was privileged many months ago to do a presentation on Emma Lou's group about parenting and personality. And because I'm your personality pro, because personality does drive reality and it impacts everything. So Emma Lou, I am so excited to have you here just to share your wisdom and your tips. And I'm going to tell on you that Emma Lou is a great grandmother, as well as being a mom. And Emma Lou, I would never have thought that you're too young to be a great grandmother. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Barb. It was easier for me to accept that I'm a great grandmother than to believe that my son is a grandfather. That was mind blowing. He
All
doesn't seem
right.
old enough to be a grandfather. So that was yes. And Barb, I just loved having you on my show. You had so much good information on how
Thank
family
you.
members can better
Yeah,
interact and connect when
yeah. To
they
understand
understand
each
their
other.
personalities. It's just
Right.
key.
Yeah.
It's so vital.
Yeah.
I love
Exactly.
that.
And it all goes into parenting. So tell me, Emmylou, how did you get to be an expert in parenting? What was your journey kind of stuff?
Well, other than going through it myself, I was also a school teacher for 24 years,
Excellent.
and I worked mainly in special education. So I worked with families who had children with special needs. And I just watched that struggle, and my heart just went out for these
Mm,
parents. And that's why I started my podcast show. I started my show at the end of 2016, and it's called In Support of Families. But it was with the goal of providing useful information for parents to support
right.
them. I think, and just recently, parents are finding themselves in the situation now they have to work from home. And whereas they could count on their children being at school so they had time to work, now their children are home. So they're not only working the technology to do their job from home, now they have to oversee their child's online classes. And they're just getting hammered. I think families are really under stress right now. And, there's no certainty. In some
Right.
cases, they don't know, will there be school tomorrow? Is it going to shut down for 2 weeks? Is it going to shut down
Right.
for the rest of the year? So, I think families are the foundation of our society. We
Exactly.
really, yeah, we really rely on them, and we need to help them out. One thing I've noticed is parents get a lot of public criticism.
Right.
If your child misbehaves in public, you get all these disapproving looks. And I think parents should be recognized as one of our frontline workers, and they should be appreciated and given a little more validation.
Right. Right. Exactly, because being a parent, as a parent and a grandparent myself, it has been a joy and yet it has been a stress. Also, like this morning, my grandchildren live with me. We all live together, and this morning, one of the grandchildren came running up. I can't get into my class. It's like, okay, modern technology. We love it when it works, but we love it when and we love it when it doesn't. But he was like, now what? And it's like, okay, let's figure this out. And so my daughter had to run down and figure out how to get into his class, because and yet then on the other hand, I was listening to one of the other classes that was going on, and it was like, okay, how are they? I mean, all kudos to the teachers that are trying
Yes.
to deal with all of this, all these different, in my thing, my every different personality. It's one thing to do it in person, but it's something else to do it through a camera.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I- yeah, and I think we have to remember too that so many of the teachers are also parents, so
Yes.
they're having that added stress of teaching their own parents. They're teaching their own kids, plus they're parenting somebody else's kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest challenge right now, that beside we know about the pandemic and having kids at home, but what do you think other than that is the biggest challenge that parents are facing right now
I think
going forward?
it's the stress. It's the uncertainty. It's,
Right.
managing. Parents have their own fears, and yet they want to reassure their children. And I think it's managing, and then, as stress has a very negative impact on all aspects of your health, especially long term stress. So it's impacting their physical health, their emotional, their mental. And I think learning to manage that stress, learning to lower and be able to think clearly and make good decisions, I think that's going to be the greatest challenge, is
Right.
just dealing
So
with the
what's it?
stress.
Right. I know, you've been doing your podcast for, many years, and people write into you and ask questions. What is the main question that you get asked to answer on your podcast?
It is interesting
Or is
because
or is it or is it like a oh, yeah, or
a
is it like
lot,
a generality of questions?
the generality would be what I'm encountering most of are really self-esteem issues. You begin to doubt
Oh,
yourself. You
okay.
begin to wonder, can I do this? And I think there's also a lack of confidence.
Right.
When you know how it's going to go, you've got your routine. That's one thing. But when you, in some cases, parents don't even know if they're still going to have a job. They don't know,
Right.
what about the family income? What's going to happen to that? And what's the structure of the day going to be like? And
Right.
so I'm that's what I'm hearing a lot of, is there is, especially women that are beginning to doubt themselves, who are beginning to, wonder if they're going to be able to get everything done, maintain that job, be the kind of mother that they want to be, and
Right.
wondering what the future is going to bring. So that's
Right.
what I've
And
noticed.
what yeah, and what just came to mind as you were speaking, and this is something for I think that we're dealing with here, is that because like before, when the kids went to school, there was quiet time to tidy up, do dishes, do all of that stuff, and now there's not. There's always somebody. They're all here in the house. So
Yes.
yeah, that, yeah, as I'm thinking about it, yeah, because I have to admit, I value tremendously my alone time
Oh yeah,
where the house can just be quiet and take that breather.
yeah,
And right, that I think is absolutely probably one of the biggest things that people are facing. And it's coming out in all sorts of, don't you find that it's coming out in all sorts of different ways? I mean, the suicide rate is going up, depression is
hmm,
going up, kids acting out is going up. And now here I'm in Chicago where it is like 3 degrees. So they're not even able to go outside because it
yeah,
is so cold. It is so cold, and we got some more snow overnight. So they're kind of like, there's not even that outlet of go outside for 10 minutes.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Right,
And I'm thinking of those teenagers who maybe since they were in kindergarten have looked forward to their senior year of high school.
right,
And last year our seniors lost graduation. This year they're losing the whole year. All of those
right,
hallmarks, senior prom,
right,
and even just being
right,
able to hang out with your friends in the halls at school, all of that they have
right,
lost.
right.
And
I know
how do
a
you,
sad story in my, yeah, a sad story in my family was my niece. She graduated valedictorian of her class and no graduation. We
yeah,
her she they did a drive by graduation where they took a picture of her in her cap and gown on the front yard.
yeah,
How
yeah,
sad if she was the valedictorian. So yeah, I understand. Yeah, and all the you know what? And I really felt bad for the academics that missed out on so many opportunities to get scholarships in that, and plus the athletes
yeah,
that were going to miss out on opportunities to play for more organized sports. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in addition, I've had the experience
Mm.
of, I work with children, with adults, with families, and in addition to just those normal childhood fears, there are, and all of us, ordinarily as a parent, you can help your children, your grandchildren, because you've been through it. Well, none of us have been through this before. This is just totally new territory for everyone.
Right. Right.
So
Don't
learning,
you, and don't you think the schooling itself has changed? Like with me, some of my grandkids are doing the new math. No clue how to help them. No
yeah,
clue how to help them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So just being able to instill in ourselves as adults and then teach it to our children, being able to find that inner peace, that calm. So no matter what's going on around us, we know who we are and we believe in ourselves. And that's a big challenge right now, Barbara.
Now, do you work with parents to help them to get that? Because
Yes.
sometimes people will say, well, yeah, that's fine. Barb, like my clients say to me, well, Barb, that's great for you to say, but how do you get that? So what do you share with your parents to help them to get that calm or that inner?
Well, I teach them how their mind works and that, you actually have several parts to your mind. And it's being able to connect all those parts, and it's being able to manage your emotions. We sometimes we tend to be afraid of emotions, like ooh, I want to avoid any of those negative emotions. Well, emotions just are,
Right,
and they all serve their purpose. If you think about it, anger freed the slaves. Anger motivates you to take action and do something that needs to be done. So anger isn't a bad emotion. Sadness helps you understand yourself better. So
right,
knowing how to use your emotions rather than allowing your emotions to use you is
That's a
key.
nugget, people. That's a nugget. Use your emotions rather than letting your emotions use you. Emmylou, that's a nugget. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good one. I like
You
that
bet.
because
You
it's
bet.
true.
It really
It's
is.
true.
It really
Yeah.
is.
And
And
and I think, don't you find sometimes that so many people, they just say, well, that's just the way I am. I can't help it.
yep, yep. But you can. You have choice. You always have choice. And it starts
Right.
with our thoughts. Let me give you an example. Say you
Yes.
walk into the kitchen and you just see that your little your toddler has just tried to pour himself a glass of milk and spilled it all over. And you could choose to have the thought, this is a huge mess. It's going to now I've got to clean that up in addition to everything else I've got to do. Or you could have the thought, he's growing up. He's learning to do things for himself. Isn't that wonderful? I just need to teach him a few tips to do this without spilling. And think of the difference between those two thoughts and the emotions that result from either one of them. You know, the first thought might bring
Right.
frustration and anger. The second thought could bring excitement, love. You're ready to help your child grow.
Pride. Yeah. To grow.
So
Right. Exactly.
understanding thoughts, these
Right.
are all,
And so often I think we just react. I know as a parent I did so
yes.
often. It was just, it would just, you would flare for that.
Yeah, yeah. If we,
And we still do that as an adult. One day I dropped 3 eggs on my kitchen floor. And for that split second, it was like, and then I went, yeah, no big deal. We have dogs. And so I got in front of them, and those eggs were gone in a flash. And all I had to do was wash that one little section of the floor for the stickiness. It was like, and then of course I laughed because they got a treat. I didn't worry. I mean, I had already dropped the eggs. There was nothing I could do about it. So I
yeah.
only had to pick up the shells. They took care of the rest of the eggs, and and then I laughed. And it
And
was like, oh yeah, that's the way I should handle other things too that are a little bit more serious than spilling eggs on a
and
kitchen floor.
and haven't you noticed those times when you were able to maintain that perspective, your life went so
Yeah,
much more smoothly than,
exactly. It. I went on to having a great day. So.
yeah, yeah. That
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah. I can still remember that. I tell that story. It's like, oh yeah, and it's so funny because one time a friend of mine, and this was before I had a dog. And one day she had said to me, she said, I have to admit, I didn't realize how many crumbs we dropped on the kitchen floor until the dog died.
oh
Her dog had died, and she said, I never realized how much more sweeping I had to do because of the crumbs on the kitchen floor. I was like, seriously? She said, oh yeah, and now I totally understand. Totally understand because we don't have crumbs on our kitchen floor because the dogs get them.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's absolutely the truth. So yeah, and you can make light of almost any situation. And don't you think that's something that we need to teach our children too? Because they're just little
Definitely.
people. They're just
Yes,
little people handling their own stresses.
yes,
Do you think
definitely.
some of the kids are just really not handling this difference in schooling well?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they're struggling. We're always concerned to hear of the suicide rate among teens. They're at a point
Yeah,
where it's hard to see that long-term perspective. It's, how many teens are able to understand this is just a temporary period of my life. I'll outgrow
right,
these insecurities. It's life's going to get better, and it's tragic when they're not able to have that perspective.
right. Yeah, just yeah. It's like I just think of all the kids here in our house that they're all reacting differently.
Hmm.
Some of the kids are saying, "Oh, yeah," and liked it. And then a friend of mine, his son, we were talking the other day, and he's a senior this year. And I guess here out where we are, they're giving them the choice of whether to go back to physically going to school or staying at home. And his comment was, he said, "What difference does it make if I stay at home or it goes to the school?" He said, "I'm sitting in front of my Chromebook doing the work. The teacher isn't teaching it any differently than if than they are at home." And so he just said, "Yeah, no." But I just heard that people said, somebody said that works for the school, that if they do not come back to school, they're not going to be able to walk across the stage to get their diploma. And I'm
Oh,
like, wow. Yeah, so that's something that I have to remember. I only heard it yesterday, so I'm going to have to, have Cara find out about that, because wouldn't that be a tragedy that just because, I mean, this is number one, it's an unprecedented time for
yes.
kids in school, and to not let the seniors walk across the stage because they stayed at home to finish their schooling. Hmm. Yeah, so that's something that I am going to be looking into to just see if that's is that true.
Rather ironic because the schools are probably counting on some students electing to learn remotely to reduce the numbers
Right,
in the classroom.
right. And now to penalize them for doing it. I just
Yeah.
thought, oh brother. So thank you. So I'm glad I was talking to you, because right at this moment I had forgotten about it. And a little brain disorder on my part. But I'm gonna have to share with Cara and just to see, because my grandson John, is in the same spot, and he has said that he's not, for the pretty much the same reason, that he's going to stay has online learning. He's a straight A student, and Drelon is a straight A student, and so why go through, and I think part of their thinking was that, don't take time away from the kids that really do need a little bit more hands on. They're both straight. Both of these kids that I'm talking about are both straight A students that are doing very well on their own. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And some
such a
students,
such a different such a different scenario.
yeah, yeah. And again,
Yeah,
students vary in how they respond to school. There are some that could be
right,
straight A's just all on their own, some
right,
who need a lot more support. And can they get this support under our current situation? I'm sure there are students who are falling through the cracks and
right,
just not
right.
getting the
So what
education.
would what would you share? What tip or strategy would you share with a parent who right now is feeling like their child might be falling through the cracks? What would you suggest for them to do?
Well,
Or is there something they can do?
yes, there is. There is. Um, I go back to, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. You really need to lower your stress level. And
Okay.
I help parents do that in under 15 minutes. Lower your own stress level.
Okay.
And then you are connecting with your child using the skills that you teach, understanding their personality, their language, talking their language, and getting a feel for what's going well, what isn't going well. And I think at this point, we may find that our national required curriculum is not going to be the solution. I'm thinking a model, an
Right.
educational model I value much more highly is the Sudbury model. And in this model, the student is encouraged to pursue their interests, their passions. You find if you take a deep dive into any topic, it could be art related, it could be sports. At some point, it naturally incorporates math, reading, writing, all
Oh, okay.
aspects of the curriculum. So, as that student is allowed to pursue is taught, find your passion and pursue it, they
Right.
naturally get a well-balanced education, and they learn to believe in themselves. They learn to do what is most important to them. They learn they can contribute to
Mm.
society. So I
So now
am
if a
one,
parent,
if
no,
that is
continue,
going to,
sorry. Right.
but you do need to have that close connection with your child, a way to help them understand that this circumstance does not define their worth as a person, that they are much more
Another
than
nugget. What their this
this.
circumstance does not define their, yes.
Yeah.
So true. For adults as well as children.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
happening around you does not define who you are. One of the sayings that I love is that there's no such thing as failure. It's only feedback.
Yes.
And it's
It's true.
absolutely the truth. So if somebody, like you just mentioned the Sudbury. Now, if a parent listening out there, and parents, if you are listening, put in the chat, replay. If you're live, thank you for listening. The thing is, if somebody would want to find out more about that Sudbury method that you are talking about, because maybe they feel that would be more beneficial for their child, how could they get in touch with you to find out more, or to find out about how to relieve their stress in 15 minutes? I loved that. And so how do you do that? So how
Well,
can we get in touch with you?
I've interviewed guests on my podcast. If you go to my website, insupportoffamilies.com, and search for Sudbury model, I have a couple of
Okay.
blogs and interviews on that. You can learn that there. And of course, you can always Google it. And my other website is healingyourfamilies.com. And I have blogs
Okay.
on there and list the services that I provide. So those two websites, insupportoffamilies.com is my podcast website. And all the podcasts for the past several years, I think it starts in 2017. I didn't have many in 2016. And then my other website,
Great.
healingyourfamilies.com. I offer
Now,
again my
is that
goal.
where the 15-minute your
Yes.
your
Yes.
15 minute?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
That's where I offer them a
Is
free
there a
ebook.
name for it? Is there a name for it?
The name for the ebook is Power Parents.
Power Parents. Perfect.
Power Parents. And right there on the homepage is information on how they can get a copy of that book.
Wow. Awesomeness. So, Emma, going forward, what are you the most excited about in, getting past all of the things that are happening right now within schooling and with parenting? So, what are you yourself most excited about going
Well,
forward?
this is an interesting that you asked that question, because when I started my business, I was thinking of my local community because I was working mainly with clients in person. Well, now that we have all learned that we can use the internet, I can help parents nationwide, actually globally, as long as they speak
Wow.
English. So that to
Right.
me is exciting. Is yes, these are hard times. We need to get back to that personal one-on-one connection, but think of our influence. We also now can learn about people all over the world and how we can help and support them. I've connected with a school teacher
Yeah.
in Kenya, and that is what is exciting to me.
Wow.
Is technology
Right.
again. We love
Right.
it. Technology has just opened the world to us. And
So
that's,
many doors. So many
yes,
doors. And you know
yes.
what? And don't you find that, and I'm in a little bit of the same boat, that I'm doing presentations for people in Australia,
Yeah.
and it is so exciting. And one of the things that I have really realized is that all the issues that we're facing here of parenting and personality, they're all there all over the world. Because people are people. And
Yes.
we all deal with
Yes.
the same insecurities, the same anxieties, the same doubts, the same fears. We all tend to handle stress in similar ways, not all the same ways. But isn't that absolutely the truth? Yeah,
Yes.
it is exciting to be able to go forward. So, anyways, Emmylou, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing about your heart for parents and for families. Because you know what, parenting is I truly believe it's the hardest job that we're ever put in front of us, to be totally
24/7.
responsible for the upbringing of another personality, of another child. And remembering that children are just little people, they're just in smaller packages, but they have all the same stresses and things, and sometimes it's worse. So,
Yes.
anyways, well,
Yes.
thanks everybody for listening. This is the Time to Shine Happiness Show, sponsored by the Diamond Factor. And my co host, Barbara Beckley, is just an awesome co host to be able to do all the background things that we're doing. And I'm Barbara Ellison, and I am your personality pro, because personality does drive reality. So thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either to Barbara Beckley, myself, or to Emmylou. If you're a parent looking for some help, reach out. And that's the biggest thing that I want to share, is you are not alone.
Yeah.
You are not alone. And there are always resources, and we are more than willing to give of our expertise and our learning, because we're all in this together. And my favorite saying is that we can't do life on our own. So
No.
thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you soon. And then Barbara's going to stop this